The old house stood alone at the end of the street, its windows black and hollow like eyes staring into the soul. A chill lingered in the air, even in the summer heat. Sarah and her brother Tom had just moved in, unaware of the house's dark past. That night, while unpacking, Sarah heard soft creaks above her, as if something, or someone, was moving in the attic. She brushed it off as old wood settling, but the sound kept gnawing at her. She decided to check it out in the morning. Morning arrived with the same unsettling silence. Sarah hesitated, but eventually found the attic door slightly open, though they had never gone up there before. Tom laughed it off, but Sarah couldn't shake the growing sense of dread. As they pulled the ladder down, a cold gust swept through the house, sending shivers down their spines. They climbed cautiously, the light dimming with each step into the attic. Dust swirled in the air, and the faint smell of mildew filled their noses. Boxes of old, forgotten belongings cluttered the attic space. In the far corner stood a large antique mirror, its surface foggy and cracked. As Sarah approached it, she swore she saw something move in its reflection. Tom waved his hand in front of the mirror, laughing, but Sarah couldn't shake the image of a pale figure behind him. "It's just your imagination," he insisted. But that night, the noises started again. Louder this time. Sarah lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. The creaking grew more frantic, more deliberate, like footsteps pacing directly above her. She pulled the covers tighter, listening as the sound drifted closer to her room. The footsteps stopped suddenly, replaced by a soft tapping, like fingernails gently scratching at wood. Sarah's heart pounded in her chest as the sound moved from the attic to the walls of her room. Someone or something was trying to get in. Tom, sound asleep in the next room, was oblivious to the eerie sounds. Sarah debated waking him, but her body froze in fear. Just as she mustered the courage to get up, the scratching stopped, and a soft whisper filled the room. She couldn't make out the words, but the voice was distant, almost pleading. Goosebumps crawled up her arms as she listened, but then, just as suddenly as it had begun, it ceased. The room fell deathly silent. The next day, Sarah tried to talk to Tom about what she heard, but he dismissed her, saying the old house was playing tricks on her. Determined, she returned to the attic, this time armed with a flashlight. The attic was colder than before, unnaturally so. Sarah could see her breath fog in the air as she stepped deeper inside. This time, she noticed something new, a small, leather-bound journal, half hidden beneath a pile of rags. She opened it, revealing pages filled with frantic handwriting. The last entry read, "She's always here, watching, waiting. I can't leave, she won't let me." Sarah's hands trembled as she realized the writing wasn't old. Suddenly, the attic doors slammed shut behind her, leaving her trapped in the cold, dark space. Her flashlight flickered, casting eerie shadows across the room. In the mirror's reflection, she saw movement again, this time clearer. A woman, pale and ghostly, stood just behind her. Sarah whipped around, but the attic was empty. The air grew thick with dread, and the sound of heavy breathing echoed in the confined space. The mirror cracked, a sharp, deafening sound that pierced through the silence. A low whisper filled the air, the same voice from last night. "Help me," it called, barely audible but filled with sorrow. Sarah bolted down the attic stairs, her heart racing. She tried to tell Tom what happened, but he still didn't believe her. That night, however, it wasn't Sarah who heard the noises. It was Tom. He awoke to the same creaking footsteps, pacing above him. The air in his room grew icy, and for the first time, Tom felt a presence he couldn't explain. The scratching started again, this time on his door. Tom threw open the door, expecting to find his sister, but the hallway was empty. A chill ran through him as he realized the sound was coming from inside the walls. Something was moving, trapped between the plaster and wood. In the middle of the night, Sarah found Tom pacing the house, pale and shaken. He didn't need to say it, he had felt it too. Something was in the house with them, and it was getting closer. Together, they decided to confront whatever haunted the attic. Armed with salt and candles, they returned to the place that had become a nexus of fear. The door was wide open, as if inviting them in. The temperature plummeted as they stepped inside, frost forming on the windows. Their breath came out in shaky puffs as they lit the candles, the flickering light barely cutting through the gloom. The mirror stood, untouched but radiating an eerie energy. Tom placed a circle of salt around them, hoping it would offer protection. The whispers started again, but this time they were louder, closer. "Help me, don't leave me," the voice was almost desperate. The mirror's surface rippled, distorting their reflections. Sarah saw the woman again, this time reaching out from the glass, her eyes hollow and filled with despair. "She's trapped," Sarah whispered, feeling a strange pull toward the mirror. The attic filled with a sudden gust of wind, extinguishing the candles. Darkness enveloped them, and the woman's voice grew louder, echoing in the room. "Set me free or join me." The choice was clear, but terrifying. Tom grabbed Sarah's arm, pulling her back from the mirror's pull. But the glass cracked again, splintering across the surface. The ghostly figure seemed to writhe within, struggling to break free. Suddenly, the attic door slammed shut once more, trapping them inside. The room felt smaller, the air heavier. The floorboards groaned beneath their feet as the attic seemed to close in on them. Tom shouted Sarah's name, but his voice was swallowed by the sound of the mirror shattering. Pieces of glass flew across the room, and from the shards, the ghostly figure emerged fully, no longer confined to the glass. The ghost loomed over them, her pale hand outstretched. Sarah felt an icy grip close around her throat, pulling her toward the broken mirror. She couldn't breathe, the cold seeping into her bones. Tom grabbed the journal, frantically flipping through the pages. He found a passage about the spirit's curse. She was bound to the attic, trapped forever unless freed by someone who dared to face her. But how? In a last desperate act, Tom threw the journal into the remaining fire from one of the candles. The flames roared to life, and the ghost shrieked in agony, her form flickering like a dying flame. The attic shook violently as the spirit screamed, her voice reverberating through the house. The floor beneath them cracked, and the air filled with the smell of burning wood. They had to escape, now. They stumbled down the attic ladder, the ghost's screams still echoing in their ears. As they reached the bottom, the door slammed shut behind them. Silence filled the house once more, but it wasn't comforting. For a brief moment, everything seemed normal, but when they looked up, the mirror had reappeared in the hallway, untouched and unbroken. The house had returned to its eerie calm, but Sarah and Tom knew the ghost was still there, waiting. They left the house the next morning, but as they drove away, Sarah glanced in the rearview mirror. In the reflection, the pale figure stood at the attic window, watching them leave, waiting for her next chance. If you enjoy the video and want more creepy stories, please hit like, share, and subscribe to my channel. It means a lot to me. That's all for today. Thank you, and have a nice day.